Welcome viewers to ePathasala PG course for architecture students, and this day we'll be discussing about data structures in GIS. As of now you have understood and you have seen what are the various inputs which are taken into GIS, how do you store the data, how do you manipulate the data, and how will you output the data. In fact, we have seen the first and the last part in detail, the inputting of data as far as how to depict the data at the end of the project. Well, so today we'll be discussing about how you are supposed to store the data, otherwise known as GIS data structures. Before going into that, let us just recapture what we have discussed and what you have seen in, say, data input. How you have input the data, how you got the data into the system and things like that. A little brief introduction about that. As you know that in case of any kind of GIS software, irrespective of the type of software or whoever is going to develop a software, we need 4 different modules. As I already told you, the first module is the data input and verification, otherwise known as data capture module, data storage, retrieval and management, data manipulation, analysis and modeling, and finally data output, or what are we called as product generation, and finally the presentation of the data. So let us see a little more details about how you input the data. As you know that input of satellite data, input of various other forms of data through digitizer boards or through scanning or any other means, even a simple Excel sheet or a spreadsheet, or some of the methods of inputting data into a GIS environment. So because the advantage of inputting into GIS will help us to modify the data, retrieve the data, you can even make any changes to the data or correct the data. That's what is the biggest advantage, as you have seen all these days. Well, finally we can also have the kind of a labeling of the data. So you can label the data in such a way that it will be very legible for anybody to understand. But most of the time you know that data can be understood without any difficulty by looking at that in the form of, which is given in the form of a map. However, labeling will give you many more details than what you expect it to. That's what is about your inputting of data. Data which are supposed to be input, or which can be rather input into GIS environment, is that satellite data, aerial photo data. Both of them were different in the earlier days. Now it has changed. Satellite data invariably is in the form of your soft copy, whereas aerial photograph data were all in the form of photographs taken from a low altitude and then copied or printed as a hard copy in a hard copy format and then handed over to the user. They in turn used to prepare maps from that, and then finally it was to go as an input into GIS environment. Similarly, satellite data always you get or receive the data only in the form of a soft copy. However, depending upon the requirement, people use the data as a hard copy, prepare the map, input, as you do in the case of your aerial photograph. But satellite data as it is available only in the form of, say, your digital data or the soft copy, as the name numbers, digital data in the soft copy format. Similar to your aerial photograph, satellite data also can be printed and can also be used as an input after preparing the map or theme, whichever is required, whatever is the application, and then input into GIS data. So either you can use the satellite data directly in GIS environment, or you can prepare a map and then input into a GIS environment. Aerial photographs is the same case. You can directly take these aerial photographs as a digital format as of now, because digital photogrammetry has improved a lot, and photographs are also taken in the form of, say, digital numbers, and that is directly input into or imported into your, say, GIS environment. So these are the 2 major things which are present as of now. Invariably we call them as satellite images or aerial photographs. You cannot call satellite images as photographs, because you don't photograph, you only image the data. Well, these points we have seen already. Well, these are not the only inputs what we will be looking at. We will also have images from other form, namely, say, your topographic sheet or topographic map. A topographic map, as all of you know, is prepared by Survey of India. That again is available in the form of, say, a soft copy and a hard copy. Please bear in mind there's a major difference between raster image and raster data. Satellite data will be available as an image, but still it is raster data. A topographic map or any other map which is prepared by various agencies which are going as an input into GIS environment need not necessarily be a digital data in the form of, say, an image. It's an image, but it's not a raster data, it's a raster image. So that difference you have to bear in mind. That theme could be a geological map, a soil map, or it could also be any other map which is prepared for a specific purpose and input into your GIS environment. Well, we also have a set of data, namely your data which will come in the form of, say, soft copy, namely data which is obtained from, say, a CAD drawing, a microstation drawing, whatever form is that. Again, that is digital in nature. That is again in some form. Let us see those details a little later. Now coming back to this one, data can also be input from in the form of, say, a simple Excel sheet, a spreadsheet rather. Need not necessarily be Excel sheet, could also be a MDB file. Whatever is that data which is available in the as point data can also be input into GIS environment, and later you can develop whatever is required from that. Many times surveyed data which is being surveyed at various places, and that also can be brought in. That's what I just told you an example as your drawing data, or that could be in the form of DWG format or a DXF format. All those things we will see a little later. Just get an idea what are the ways in which you can input the data. Satellite data, L-photo data, topographic sheets, that is topographic maps or topographic sheet data from that, or maps from that, or thematic maps prepared by various agencies, surveyed data, or the observed data. Observed data is nothing but what of late we are doing is that taking a GPS to the field and collecting the point of interest. It could be a simple well data, it could be any specific building for a study where you don't require the data or the building to be represented as a polygon, just as a point data, representation. So you can represent these features in that form. So a kind of a collection of data pertaining to a specific location without mentioning whether it's going to be a line data or a polygon data. A point data can also be represented using an observation point. So that's what is your GPS data collection. Okay, this is the way in which you input various data into a GIS environment. So let us just continue with the various types of data, how it is entering into that. So this is the satellite data which I have been telling you now, how the satellite data appears. On the left side you can find the satellite data which is a raster image. That's why we call it as data image. Now bear in mind, I was just telling you about your data and image, difference between that. A raster image as such cannot be picked up or cannot be selected or it cannot be edited. Of course, I do agree that images can also be edited in a software meant for that, a PaintShop Pro or your any other Adobe Photoshop and things like that. That is editing of a raster image. Like you just simply take a photograph and then make changes to that. That's not the concern here. Here we are talking about an image which can neither be selected nor can be edited. So that's what is a raster image. Whereas a raster data is not like that. A raster data can be selected. Details about that particular aspect also can be stored, and then as well as it can also be edited. So that's what the major advantage of a raster data. Well, a satellite data, though we call it as raster data, it appears, I told you it is only imaging aspect. That's the reason we call it as raster image. So don't get confused with a scanned image of a document or a map or a drawing with that of your satellite image. A satellite image is invariably a raster data in the form of a satellite image. As I was telling you about the thematic map, which are normally prepared from, say, aerial photographs or satellite data. Yes, this is an example of a slope map depicting various features at places, along with your, say, some of the names are also given in the map, and that is also immense use while you are preparing a map. It is an example of a slope map on a 1/50,000 scale. Topographic sheet. In detail, we have seen those, how a topo sheet are all prepared and things like that. Now you can find that it contains various details apart from your water bodies and vegetation, which is normally shown in say your yellowish color, and then you have a settlement which is shown in red color, and we have water bodies which may be shallow or which may be deeper in nature or may with water throughout there. All these things are all shown from a topographic map. From this, we can extract more than one layer. So that's what is a topography sheet is a very important input. FMB sketch, this is what I was telling you about, drawings which are available with the say various agencies, and then we collect the data and then we try to input this data. Of course, there are two ways in which you can develop this data. Either simply keep this as a background and then take it into the GIS, and this is a raster image when you just scan the data, and the data will go as an image into a GIS environment, wherein which we try to digitize or trace all these features and get the output. Of course, we can also build the data using your say ladder data. The ladder data is on the right side, and this is what is the data which we can bring it into a GIS environment. As I was telling you about, the last one is your observed points, points which are obtained from the field using a handheld GPS or any kind of GPS, and you get the XY location. It could be latitude, longitude, or it could be easting or northing, whatever is that, and the data is provided here. And once I have these observed points, which may be as I told you, Excel sheet or a spreadsheet, any spreadsheet, that data also can be brought into a GIS environment as a point data by simple means. Where the simple methods will be there, you can bring the data. So this is about inputting the data in say GIS environment. Now finally, very important thing, we enter into the various types of data which is available in say GIS, or data which input into say GIS environment. What are the major types? Normally we have two types of data, which is your vector data or raster data. Vector data, specifically in GIS we call it as shape data. Data which is in the form of a specific shape. That's why it's called as a shape file. It could be a point data, it could be a line data, or it could be an area data. So this we have seen in detail many times. We otherwise call them as features. So all the data which is in the form of a vector data or a shape data are otherwise called as features. It could be a point data, a line data, or a polygon data. Importantly note that a point data, as I think you just you can understand, very simple method, it doesn't have any dimension. It's a zero dimension object, and very importantly it's a combination of two numbers, namely x and y. It represents well location, as I was telling you, crime scenes, or a small city, or it could be a building which can be represented using a point data. Line data, single dimension. A point neither has your length or area. A line or a polyline consists, though it is one dimensional, it doesn't have area, it has got only length. And it's nothing but the shortest distance between 2 points. Of course, this is a very simple thing, everybody knows. We have a beginning point and an ending point for a line, and invariably this represents streams, boundaries, and roads, or any kind of feature which are linear in nature. Of course, the most important input is your polygon data. It's a two-dimensional data which has got both length as well as area. And what is that again? Please bear in mind, whether it's going to be a point data, or it's going to be a line data, or a polygon data, everything is consisting of only point data. A point is a point, unique value. A line is a connecting between 2 points. A polygon is a connecting line between amongst various points. You start with a particular point and you end with the same point. Once it is there, it encloses a space. So that we convert into a line into a polygon. So that's what the computer does. Nothing else is unique. So everything and anything represented as a point or a line or an area, it's all consists of basic detail, namely your point data. So that will decide whether it's going to be point or line or area, depending on how you incorporate the data. What does the GIS software do? It stores the data in this vector format, and it is supposed to retrieve the data, isn't it? Otherwise there's no point in storing the data as such. So what it does is, it stores the data and retrieves the data. To retrieve the data and depict in the same form as it was in the initial stage, or as it was obtained, so that is a difficult process. So retrieval, you need, if you want to store at the same time retrieve the data, you have to follow a specific procedure, a norm, and that is what is your data structure. Once you follow that, it will be very easy. Only storing is difficult, but retrieval is easy because everything and everything in GIS is represented, or it is affected by what is called as your coordinate system, especially the earth coordinate system, where in which we have the value of x and y in the form I told you about, both your latitude, longitude, or could be easting and northing, whichever form. So it will have a coordinate, and that is what is actually we do it in a simple graphical method. We just try, all of you must have done in your school days a simple graph with the xy as the origin point, and probably the top right we have the zeros from 100 from 00 to 100 will be the top right. So anywhere you prick between 0 and 100 you will have a value of x and y. So that's what is all about your representation. In a GUI it is represented. So we know that a polygon has got both area as well as length. It is in the form of a perimeter, circumference. I think these details we have just seen in cartography lecture even. Now you see this, if you just look at this, you'll have how a building which has been taken as a photograph from the top is represented, or it is shown in the form of, say, your vector data as well as a raster data. In fact, this is what I was telling you. This is left one, what you see is a real world aspect. It will be a photograph, or it could be an image from satellite. And this one actually consists of a building here, and that building may have to be captured, and you also have a road by the side. I want to capture this building as well as the road. I can also have some points in the surrounding area. This one, you see how it is represented in the form of vector data or a raster data. You can see this vector data, it exactly follows the line as you just see here. So this line, it just follows, goes around like this. This is a polygon and ends up here. Whereas this river, or it could be say a road, have to be represented in this form. But please bear in mind, a road also is not a line data. It is only for representation purpose. Road is also containing width. It is also got length. So it's a road is also a area data. But still, basically we call that road, we represent the road as a line data. So in the vector form, you can see it is represented as it is totally. But in raster form, you can see how it is distorted. But by increasing the size, in the sense what we normally do, making it larger and larger, the scale, this resolution, it becomes much more smoother. So that's why you must have seen in many of the say your photographic techniques or mobiles, they say MP, million pixels, isn't it? 3 MP, 5 MP. So imagine, so nothing will go wrong. But still, when you look at the raster data, you should understand that the raster data will try to have number of cells. So this is what we call it as a grid or a cells, various cells in the form of a grid. Of course, we will see the details a little later. You can see how the building is represented here. Of course, as far as this is concerned, because it follows a proper line and this is also there, but once it just takes a turn, so once it is taking an angle from away from the vertical or the horizontal, you find that it gets distorted, and you can see here how it. So provided I increase in the sense with resolution, this is split into many more cells, obviously that particular thing will become much more smoother, and this will become almost a straight line. You can also see here, in the case of your road, here it is a simple straight line, but here you see how it occupies there. So depending upon the line width and the line in which it is captured, it will be stored in the form of various cells. So that is what is the major difference between your vector data and raster data. So please bear that in mind. There's a third form of putting the data, that is we call it as surfaces. Expressing the surface in the form of, say, say it could be a contour data, it could be a elevation model, digital elevation model. In that context, we have a third type of structure, which is also a part of, say, vector and say raster, or raster many times. That is called as your triangulated irregular network structure. A very, very unique structure and a very important structure. As the name indicates, triangulated irregular network. So it will have n number of triangles. The whole area will be divided into n number of triangles or irregularly spaced. But you will not have any other shape other than triangles. So triangulated irregular network of that triangles. So if you just look at the picture, this particular surface may have to be transferred into a sheet of paper. You see here how it is done in the form of triangle. You can see hundreds and thousands of triangles are there, but none of them will be of similar size or shape. It could be similar sometimes, but most of them you find that they are all of different sizes and shapes, and then they are present at different locations. Of course, it all depends on various aspects that we will see. Depending upon the object, the shape, its size, it is divided. For simple example, you can see here, this is a slightly elevated zone. So in this context, you can just find that it is relatively bigger because there's a uniformity of the object. So when you don't have that uniformity, it will be difficult to represent the data. So here you can find little bends are there, and this is how it goes. So every aspect of that, every aspect you find that this triangulated irregular network will help us in depicting the surfacial features as it is. So we call it otherwise called as surfaces, contours and DEM, etc. So that's a third type of GIS structure. When you try to compare or try to understand how vector data and raster data are represented in the form of a graph, a graphical representation of say your raster data, vector data and the real world, and you find that various aspects, point data, for example, they have given it as hotels, how it is there. So this is a point data, as I was just already telling you, the x-axis and the y-axis. This will be 0, 0 and this will be say for example 100, 100, and anywhere you prick in between it will have a value of xy and a unique value will be there. Similarly, line data, as I was just telling you, you can see here from one point to another point. This is a node part and this other is called as the arc part. So we find that and once it takes a change in direction, it will become a vertex. So on and so forth. We will see those details a little later. You have the same aspect which is shown here. Okay, then we have an important aspect, namely your polygon, how a polygon is shown here, and that polygon is represented very uniquely in the case of your say your vector data. Though it appears, of course, it is not exact representation of this forest area, just to give you an idea about this. But here, when I want to use, I was just showing you then, when I want to digitize this or when I want to bring it into GIS, I have the advantage of going along this line and make it as smooth as possible. But again, that depends on a very important thing, the scale factor, that we will see later. Now here what happens is that we should make sure that the closer you prick, the better will be the uniformity and smoother. Otherwise what will happen, it will become a coarse way of living. In fact, that's what is shown here, a coarse way of representing an object here, but it's not truly a vector data which can also be smoothed. Well, so then coming to your road network, as I just telling you some as a simple line and ski lift, here you have the road network. Now you have here, so this is what actually happens. See, when a road network is shown here, it is raster data, it is all a sum total of n number of area, it is kind of occupying area, but here it is a straight line. And again, as I was just telling you, roads are definitely not lines as such, it's only a representation. So depending upon a type of study, when I am going to study or work on the network of road in the form with respect to civil engineer's perspective, what he does is he is more interested in understanding how the road is, what is the length of the road, what is the width of the road, what type of material which is present there, how much, what should be the carriageway and things like that. Whereas when I want to work on something like resources movement, the movement of resources, then I don't bother about the raster data. I have to bother only about the vector data. So in that context, I'm not going to represent the road as a polygon. I'm going to represent the road only as a line data. So that's how we normally do that. And we find that here, this road, you see how it is going. So this is the representation of the line data. So that's how you show them. Well, I was also talking to you about surfaces. Surfaces here, again, how an area is shown here, what exactly you have in the form of a surface, which is a very important aspect in GIS, is that representing a surface. If I want to show the third dimension aspect of a land surface, I'll have to use elevation, isn't it? X and Y, I have the X and Y is nothing but your two-dimensional. When I want to have the Z direction, the third dimension, then I'll have to have method of representing the third dimension in two dimension, namely surfaces. So all the aspects like contours. Contour lines which are shown in any kind of map, for example a topographic map, is nothing but a line depicting a specific elevation in that given area. That is shown as a two dimension. So when I can translate the contour data into some form, say point data in GIS, I'll have the advantage of creating a third dimension as it is. That's what is called as a digital elevation model, or a DEM we call it as. So developing surfaces, or you want to represent as it is, you can represent the third dimension as a two-dimensional lines, namely the contour data. So this is what you can see here. And of course, in raster it may appear like a wholesome, somewhat similar to your polygon, but it is only the third dimension. In this context, every cell here will be given a value of not only the xi and its content, and the data will also be containing something like, say, your values pertaining to that particular cell, namely your z value. So obviously when I have the z value, I'll have the advantage of enhancing it into a third dimension. So here you see here how you have the surface elevation, and this is what is the contour. Obviously, you know, all of you, a contour is nothing but a line showing points of equal value. That need not necessarily be elevation. That also could be something like, say, pertaining to water level data, or it could be pollution data. So in which we try to say that any ppm value, it could be your carbon or whatever it is, the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, whatever you are trying to measure, that can be shown as a contour data. So contours are nothing but lines which is representing a same value, and obviously contours can never intersect with each other. So that's the big advantage. Of course, you find in raster data, you may be surprised how it is not there, but that we will see in the form of your, say, topological model and other details. Now coming back to the introduction to your, say, vector data. So vector data, how it appears and what exactly is the content of your vector data. As I was just telling you, each and every object on the Earth's surface is composed by a series of xy coordinate pair. It could be a pair or it could be pairs of data. So for example, if it is settlement, it is one single data, a pair of xy data. If it is going to be a river or a line, it may have a beginning. So here this will be the beginning of the line and this will be the end of this line. Of course, there will be slight variation here, and whenever you have an intersection of two lines, it has to be, say, something like a node. Otherwise, it cannot have that. So a node will be at the end of the data, at the beginning of the data, and also at the end of the line. And this is otherwise called as an arc. It normally represented as telling you the river data and any other road data. All these things can also be there. So wherever you have a change in direction, a vertex in singular, vertices in plural is introduced. Because obviously when I have the polygon, the polygons will be having something like this. So this is what is indicating one area covering this one, and this is the another polygon covering another area, so on and so forth. Invariably this should be for your, say, a land use map, or it could be an administrative map, or whatever map you would wish to do that. So that can be provided and that can be given here. So that's what is the normally called as your polygon data. It's nothing but closed set of lines. So that's what is the best part of your GIS. So when which the vector data, again, there are only three basic features, namely the point data, line data, and the area data. What is a vector model? So you should know what a vector model is all about. So let us see what a vector model is. So basically, when they were trying to describe the data or show the data as in an explicit method or a form, and that they found that if you want to represent the data in explicit form, you can do it using what is called as your vector. So that's a major advantage you have in using the vector data. And it also appears, so what advantage of again vector data is that you can represent the aspect or what you see on the surface as on a sheet of paper as a map. So that is also not losing the dimensionality. So that's what is the biggest advantage. We also get precise positioning of that particular object. Any kind of an object we want to do that, we can get a precise positioning of that object using vector data. Of course, most important aspect is that your analysis of your data. Any kind of quantitative analysis is possible using vector data. So with this, we'll close this episode on your vector data and in general the structures of or the data structures in GIS. Thank you.